Hey, what's up, y'all? Happy Saturday. Hope you all enjoying your weekend and everything. Welcome to the Left Fresh Podcast. It's the Saturday Night Live hip hop episode. Um, if you're on for the first time, I want to encourage you to subscribe, like, comment, share, tell a friend, tell a friend. Like I said, welcome if it's your first time. If you're a repeat offender, welcome to the episode. Welcome to another episode. This is the Hip Hop Saturday Night Live episode of the Left Fresh Podcast. Um, got a good episode lined up. Got some releases that came out yesterday. One release pretty much shook up the whole hip hop, discourse. Um, got the other ones got slipped in under the radar. Got some anticipated going that coming up in the next upcoming weeks. Nice busy month in May in hip hop. You know what I mean? Good. I like to see it like that. You know what I mean? It's been a pretty good year up to this point as well too. But yeah, yesterday Bombshell dropped. You know what I mean? Everybody's talking about it. All the discourses about it. Me personally, I'm just listening around for everything, but definitely had to stop and listen to see what all the talk is about. Like I said, I'm gonna lead into that a little bit later on in the episode. But definitely ready to get it started, ready to get it cranked up. Like I said, I hope everyone's enjoying their weekend. Good Saturday, everything relaxed. Um, get you into this Saturday Night Live, and let's get right to it. I'm not going to hold it any further delay. Like I said, I'm gonna get into the new releases shortly, but I'm gonna start off with got an hip hop anniversary. Like I said a couple weeks ago, we had some upcoming this month. One particularly, this one was released on May 14th, which was 2 days ago. It would be Thursday, so had to cover it today. This album right here is for the OGs. This one's right here for the old school, even before my time a little bit. I mean, I'm 41, but this came out back when I was six. It's 1991, 35 years. 2 days ago. De La Soul is dead. This right here is highly revered in the hip hop community. De La Soul, considered a legendary group by many. And this is particularly one of their crown jewels. This is their second release, came out 35 years ago, like I said, in 1991. See the cover art, got the broken pot of flowers. Um, yeah, this is definitely considered revolutionary for its time. Like I said, this is kind of stuff that, you know, when you see 30 years later and everything like that, you kind of revisit it and you ask yourself, like, wow, you know what I mean? Can you imagine what was going on back then? I mean, like I said, I'm only 6 years old. Some many 30-year-olds were not even born. A couple 30-year-olds wasn't even born yet. A few 30-year-olds was just infants and everything too. So, this was going on when you were a small child, and this was highly revered at the time. Like I said, one of the milestone albums for this group that's considered legendary in the hip hop community. Rest in peace, Trugoy. Um, this album right here, like I said, this is their crown one, their second release. Um, Reading up on it, looking into it, and revisiting it. This was an album that kind of shed the label of them being a hippie group from their first album. And as you get into this one, you start seeing the production kind of like almost ahead of its time a little bit. Like you think about how hip hop sounded back in the 80s and the late 80s and everything in the golden era. Rakim and Cool G Raps and KRS Ones and Big Daddy Kane's, and then even on the West Coast, you started seeing the resurgence of gangster rap with NWA and everything, and then here comes De La Soul like in 1991. And also a fun fact, this came out a couple months before Tribe Called Quest first album, The Low End Theory as well. If you look on the track list, you see track number 7, one of the big tracks on this album, Roller Skating Jam, named Saturdays, featuring Q-Tip. Yeah, this is before Q-Tip. This was before Tribe Called Quest. So yeah, this was early Q-Tip. Right before, like I said, Tribe Called Quest dropped in September of this year, The Low End Theory, which is considered a classic on their account. But yeah, feature by Q-Tip on this one. Like I said, before Tribe Called Quest, yeah, De La Soul, obviously, like I said, um, not just legendary, but pretty much in a pioneer in a sense, because of they provided that kind of alternative hip hop. Like I said, in the world of the golden era hip hop and the gangster rap on the West Coast, you know, De La Soul came in with a different sound, different, like I said, I mean, alternative is the best way to describe it. Their production was kind of different from what everybody else was kind of doing at that time a little bit. They was the one that kind of delved into the like the funkadelic and the jazz and the funk sound, and kind of sampled it into hip hop at that point. Definitely maybe not exactly the first, but definitely one of the first, one of the early versions of it. You know what I mean? Just start dabbling in different sounds of hip hop and started contribute in different ways. Like I said, and also, there's 27 tracks on here, which is a lot of volume for an early hip hop album. So the production, the length of the volume of the tracks, the skits. Skits weren't like very that prevalent back then. De La Soul kind of brought in the skits into hip hop as far as they had like 5 skits on this one. If you look at track 11 through 20 as well, My Brother's a Bass Head, they had some crazy names for some songs too. Like they really thought outside of the box. They couldn't really do what everybody else did, and they did their own thing, and it actually worked. That's a different thing too. When you're creative and you're different, and some people will reject it and say it's not what I'm typically used to. You know what I mean? And then there's others who's like, yeah, it sounds a little different, but it actually worked though. Especially a couple of songs on here, like a couple milestone songs, like Millie pulled a pistol on Santa. I listened to the production on that one. That definitely sounded ahead of its time. Like that did not sound like something that was kind of in 1991. The production on there, that's what kind of stood out to me. The rhymes was, it wasn't like terrible, but I mean, when you listen to the production, it was definitely like ring, 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 ha ha hey. That production right there was crazy too. Like even in 1991, that was like I heard that was ringing too. So I mean, those are like the key tracks for me. Ring, 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 and you look at Rap Day Rap Show, Millie Pull a Pistol on Santa. I think the production was definitely exceptional on this one. Like I said, it was different and it worked. De La Soul, like I said, one of the kind of put him in a lane with the Tribe Called Quest, and even transcending down to even Outkast. Even like they just the content of their music was you know unique. The songs, the production, the beat selection, I like I said, in the source, we all give the source a little. We understand that the source may have been a little bit biased in their evaluations over the years, but this was legitimately a five mic album in the eyes of the source. And beyond the source, a lot of people really revered this album right here. This was definitely like I said, an OG's classic. De La Soul came out when I was 6 years old. So I mean, 35 years later, here it is. Like I said, stands in the minds of many. Um, Go back and revisit it. I mean, like I said, you might find something on those old school tracks that you like. Yeah, I didn't even know. Some of the OGs is watching this as well. You probably remember this too. It'll probably click back in your head, especially if you play that track 21, ring, 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 ha ha hey. I think I might have like heard it in the back of my mind as a kid or everything like that. But I mean, like, you know, 35 years later, like I said, Afro Connections at a high five. They got some crazy song names too. Like I said, I mean, thinking the names of the track list had to be fun for them as well. But yeah, De La Soul, happy 35 years to De La Soul is dead. Rest in peace, Trugoy. Like I said, it was a big 1991 low end theory. Obviously, was a big year in hip hop too back then. I mean, that was a year for the OGs right there, 1991. But yeah, happy anniversary. I'll be revisiting a couple more of these albums. That these milestone albums and anniversaries for them. Reminding people. Tapping people in if they haven't come across it somehow, some way. But yeah, I was definitely had fun revisiting that De La Soul album right there. Just kind of seeing seeing where it's at, how well it aged, and what its impact really was, and what kind of mark did it really set, and it did. So salute to De La Soul, salute to De La Soul is dead, the album, and that's our anniversary one. Let's get to the main attraction. Let's get to the album that everybody was talking about. Well, the 3 albums that ended up coming out. I'm gonna get these first 2 out the way. Drake, as I said from weeks ago, was dropping his album May 15th yesterday. And not only did he deliver one, he delivered 3 albums. And I'm gonna get to my preconceived conclusion, safe to conclude after reading around as well about these 3 albums. But the first one he dropped, well, I would say the first of the 3 he dropped was Maid of Honor. This one right here is probably more R&B-ish, pop-ish. Drake showing off his other traits and qualities. Kind of breezed through these since he's, not really so much rapping on there, but he's got his track list up there as you can see. He's got a couple features from Central C to Sexy Red, Stunner Sandy. A lot of the younger artists Drake is working with lately, moving with them, trying to appeal to the younger audience. Like I said, a good bit of singing on here. You know, Yeah, if you're not a Drake the singer guy, this is probably the one you want to skip through. I mean, I heard through them just because I just wanted to see what the beat selection is like, kind of get a gauge of what's going to get played in the club. I can tell you track one's probably going to get played in the club. I can definitely see number three probably in the club. Seven is getting played in the club probably. Yeah, that's one thing. I anticipated was that despite everything going on, Drake was going to make something for the club. New Bestie, Q&A, Stuck, Goose and the Juice. Yeah, some of these, I mean, I'm not sure about all of these, but I mean, I can definitely tell you um, that Drake's definitely, catering to that lane. Like I said, I think he's just flooding it just for other ulterior motives. But yeah, the second album of the three he dropped was Habibti. And Habibti, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. But yeah, this one here is another one that's kind of along the lines of pop house music. Not really sure what to label it as, but the track list got WNBA, number three, Slap the City, High Fives, Her Not There, Sexy Red Again, Low Shimmy on I'm Spent, Party Next Door on Fort Worth. Yeah, Drake was definitely tapping into the other side of his versatility, which is the singing part, the pop part, kind of, what Drake does. And this is kind of like, a lot of people, not to take away from Drake actually rapping or anything like that, but this is kind of what really pushes Drake's sales and streams through the roof. I mean, these are the songs that's going to get played on TikTok. These are the songs that are going to get played on platforms and everything like that. You know, um, Drake already does the melodic rap, but then he also takes it to just flat out singing as well. So, no, I ain't mad at Drake, man. I ain't mad at him. He does what he does. I mean, do I listen to it particularly? Like most of the singing stuff, I probably will not revisit. Like I said, I mean, if you go out and you party and whatever like that, you're probably going to come across these songs anyway. They're pretty much unavoidable. Drake streaming all through breaking the internet, of course. So, that's typical Drake work. Like I said, uh, it's typical Drake formula. I mean, that's one thing I will say, not to be negative or anything, but when you do 15, 16 years in a game, you pretty much have a formula and you can variate the formula, you can deviate from it, but you got a formula, and no matter what, it's either gonna stay fresh or it's gonna kind of get old. I did think some of these songs on those two out of those three were pretty repetitive. But I know it's going to get played in the club. I know it's going to be played on people's TikToks and all that different stuff. So, it did what it's supposed to do. And like I said, later on, I'm gonna tell you what purpose it really served. But I think the moment that we all working on, the moment we was all waiting for the actual rap album, Iceman. Um, so many different cover art that was passed around, that was being spread around on the internet just for this one to come out. I seen Drake on a I seen Drake's face frozen so many times. I was thinking like, I think this is too simple for Drake. And then sure enough, it comes with a Michael Jackson like glove, and it's pretty. This kind of makes more sense. I mean, I kind of see it now. I'm seeing all over the internet different crops and everything done to it as well too. So, one thing about Drake, like many artists or public figures out here, they're gonna have like a polarizing response from people. You're either gonna get a lot of trolling, or you're gonna get a lot of glazing, a lot of standing, a lot of fanboyism, or you're gonna get a lot of trolling. It's never really too much in between anymore. It's almost like you don't really get objective opinions about Drake anymore. Like nobody keeps it real either way. Nobody's gonna admit fault if you're a fan. Nobody's gonna admit, give credit where it's due if you're a troll. Um, but overall to me, this is where I come in the middle. Is like, it wasn't a bad project. I don't think it was a bad project. I don't know if I still don't think it's still a first listen. I mean, it's not like, I mean, not even the first listen. I gave it about two or three listens, honestly. I'm pretty comfortable not putting it above Take Care. Pretty comfortable not putting it above Nothing Was the Same or the best of Drake's projects. But I do think that if you're gonna come with an album as anticipated, I think he did deliver enough to say he delivered. Like, there's a couple songs in here I'm not revisiting. I'm gonna tell you that right now. It's kind of like the same thing with the J. Cole album, The Fall Off. There's some tracks on here I'm not revisiting. I don't feel really a need to. Um, Another thing is a couple of these songs. The most interesting part about it, this album, is that the list that Drake has. Drake had a list of people to get at. And I mean, who better to start with than Kendrick Lamar? He addressed Kendrick Lamar quite a few times on there. He addressed DJ Khaled. He addressed Pusha T, ASAP Rocky, Joe Budden, LeBron James, Jay Z, J Cole, Playboy Cardi. You mentioned Nicki and Cardi a little bit, but yeah, the names before that, all those names I mentioned before Nicki and Cardi, he definitely had smoke for them. Threw some lines, some double entendres in there, a couple metaphors and everything. Like, one thing I will say is that, there's a lot of criticism and speculation and skepticism on whether Drake can actually rap. And like I said, I'm not going to glaze like, oh, he's the greatest rapper I've ever heard or the greatest pen I've ever heard. But there's another sense where it's like, there was an early phase of Drake, backpacker Drake, that actually had a pen game and it's still there. I know a lot of the indictments about ghostwriting and everything. I mean, yeah, but then on the other end, Drake has wrote for other artists, and other artists have acclaimed his musical writing ability. So, I mean, it kind of goes, both ways. Like I said, there's an in between point where Drake puts his pen on paper, he can come up with some stuff, and he did. He came up with some little clever lines and everything like that. I heard it. You know what I mean? I think it was good to see him bounce back in there and everything. But some of the points he made, I kind of disagree with, or some of the stances, of course. But I mean, at the same time, it's like, hey, when you take a shots at people, you got to be extreme a little bit. You got to be hyperbolic or speaking hyperbole. You can't just say, "Oh yeah, you made a good album." Now you got to be like it's trash, even if it is good. So I understand where he's coming from. Even if I disagree with it, you got to fire back at people and everything. So yeah, Drake kind of, you know, came with the Iceman, really with the whole relic. Like he just kind of like going at the whole room at this point. He felt like everybody's closing in on him, and he kind of just fought back. That's why I kind of got the vibe of when I was listening to it. But it was clever though. I mean, I'll give him that. He was clever with it. If you look at the track list, make them cry. Everything with a make them prefix on there is pretty much addressing people, addressing artists particularly. I mean, he's dressing everybody everywhere, kind of, but definitely on anything that had make them on it, like track one, track seven. And I like the sampling on here. I'm not gonna lie, I think what made this Drake album a lot better, like easy to put up with, is the production on there was actually pretty good. Like the sampling was dope. Like, yeah, I really like the production on there. I got to be honest with you. I mean, and it's not. I don't even have to say it like apologetically either. Like, I mean, one thing I mean about Drake, I'm not, like I said, I'm not the biggest Drake fan. Um, I have my skepticisms of him myself, but I mean, good beat selection. A lot of artists, that are typically great have great beat selection. I mean, you really don't really go far without it. But I mean, yeah, Drake's beat selection was definitely on a good level this time around. I honestly didn't think his beat selection on the last two or three projects was that great. I mean, he always has one or two of those beats that was like that, but on this one here, I feel like there was quite a few beats on here that I actually liked. Like that's been a while since I can actually say that. I mean, I can go back to previous Drake projects and see a lot of beats that I like, but it's been a while since I heard production that I liked on a Drake project like this consistently. And yeah, I mean, he put the pen down on a piece of paper, man. He put the pen on the paper on this one. I mean, he was addressing people and stuff. Like I said, agree to disagree. I mean, creativity was there. I'll tell you that. Um, Gus, Janice, STFU, Randall Atlanta is probably going to get a lot of play in the club too. Drake and Future, yeah. I mean, they got Future back on there. Bees on the table, another feature with 21 Savage. If you look at tracks 11 through 18. Of course, the What Did I Miss? Everybody heard that months ago. Don't worry. Make Them Know. Another Make Them track. Yeah, he was definitely addressing people. Make Them Remember. Yeah, he was addressing mostly people on tracks that had Make Them on it. Little Birdie, Don't Worry. Yeah, some of these I won't revisit again. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I don't, you know, think it was like the absolute greatest album and everything like that. But he did have his tracks. He did have those beats, and he did have some bars. So I was like, it's a give and take situation. Like I said, I'm not saying it's just as good as J. Cole or better than J. Cole's. It's just kind of like the same thing with me. It's like it's got its highs, like the highs was high and the low is kind of like something I wouldn't revisit. I will say I don't think the lows is as low as J. Cole's lows though. I think J. Cole's lows were like pretty low because I think J. Cole had too many songs. I think 18, like Drake kept his under 20. But this Iceman album right here, like he kept his under 20, which was definitely needed. I definitely didn't think Drake had, I know Drake's been on a hiatus and everything, but when he had 2 other albums like that, I don't think this Iceman project particularly needed 20 or more songs, and I'm glad he kept it underneath 20. So, I mean, he said what he needed to say and everything. It was cool though. I mean, like I said, the production of it, that was the strongest part for me. And, you know you know, he came back to the backpack Drake bars a little bit. So, I mean, turning 40 as well, so he's a little and he got a little chip on the shoulder, you know. I guess a pissed off panda, he's going to sink his claws in. He's ready to go, I guess. But it's gonna be interesting to see how the rest of the year comes out because I think Kendrick might come out with another album, maybe somewhere down the line as well. But one of the questions is like, man, 3 albums, man. Drake was going crazy and everything. Um, I read somewhere just to verify, but I already kind of felt it when it came down to it. You know what I mean? Like this is the his last. Those are his last 3 albums to get off of UMG. Yeah, 20 is too much when you have other albums. Yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? Like when you got 3 albums in total, you do not need 20 songs on either project. I mean, you already got a combined total of like 30 songs. Even if this, even if this particular project, like you had a particular direction, like I said, each album was different in its own way. I still don't think this album by itself, even without the extra albums on it around it, you don't need 20 songs for this project. Like this project right here was kind of cut and dry. I felt like the world betrayed me. Everybody turned their back on me. I'm coming back with a vengeance. Nobody ever did it like me. You pretty much said what you had to say in less than 20 songs. But yeah, he had his hit list, and he dropped his 3 albums. And honestly, who I think was on the hit list before anybody else was UMG, Drake's label. Yeah, after this is like Drake's pretty much a free man at this point. I think I'm reading somewhere that he has an independent album coming out soon, and that's kind of how that trajectory goes. You know what I mean? Like I think Drake has had a very, very high level of success in the game. Like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan myself, but I respected the fact that he was able to make music the way he did and, draw the fan base that he was able to draw, to each his own. But at this point, Drake's at this point where it's like he can go independent. He has a following, he's got a buzz, with all the other artists, this is the streaming era for you. You know what I mean? Like independent was kind of a way to go for many artists maybe 20, 30 years ago, but you wouldn't see them or get the promotion or exposure. You're talking about an artist that's already been everywhere, it's global. Anytime a Drake project is going to drop, hopefully, he has a devoted fan base that's going to put up numbers for it. But it's going to be a big test, though. It's going to be a big test. Without the machine behind you, can you deliver the way you did without the machine behind you? And I mean, like I said, I think Drake's gonna be good because he's got a global fan base, and he's not really, people still gonna turn up to see how his albums turn out and see how his albums turn out and everything like that. So, you know, if anybody could take that jump towards independent, is Drake. I mean, there's plenty of other independent artists out here that get distribution deals and different things like that. And, they're sustaining pretty well too. So I don't really see Drake having a hard time, sustaining. I do think that this is kind of also the point of, Drake's an older artist. He's gonna be 40. And, just like all the other 35 and up artists that we listen to, it's pretty much a different age bracket for that. I'm not sure if the new generation of 20-year-olds that see Drake as an older artist is going to keep up with him. That's the question. Is the younger generation really going to keep up with him? Are they even checking for him now? I mean, I'm not sure if this is the consensus of the younger people, but I've seen Drake's face being cropped on a Patrick Ewing and Orlando Magic jersey, meaning that that means washed. And I mean, I didn't get that impression from this album, but I mean, I can see the younger generation kind of just growing up, knowing Drake from just like it's like somebody my dad listens to or somebody, or you know what I mean? Like, it's just it's still a youth, what I'm saying, even though the streaming era is kind of stretched out and the age of the genre is kind of stretched out how long artists can sustain, there's no age limit on it, but Drake's age, the fan base that he's grown has grown with him, you know what I mean? And it's a matter of are those younger fans going to tap in with Drake the same way his core fan base grew up with him? And like I said, he's going to be independent for the most part. If there's anybody that could be independent, it's probably him. but this is kind of a potential transition. You know what I mean? Like this is definitely big transition, moving on from mainstream to independent. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. Like I said, Drake kind of went out with a bang on these last three albums. So, you know, it was big all over the place. Internet still talking about it to this day. I'll probably give it another listen just to dissect it. But like I said, I found some highs, found some stuff I wouldn't revisit. Wouldn't necessarily call it a classic, but at the same time, it's he has some songs that hit, so I'm not gonna deny that. Um, if you're just jumping on, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, comment, share, tell a friend, tell a friend. Welcome to the Saturday Night Live hip hop edition of the Left Fresh podcast. You can find me on Instagram at This Is Left Fresh. You can find me on TikTok at This Is Left Fresh too, same handle. But yeah, moving on. Uh, Next album that came out yesterday as well kind of flies under the radar with all the buzz that Drake gets. Nick Grant, he's a little more flying under the radar period as an artist, but he's made some quality projects. This project right here particularly is called Smile. Um, definitely liking definitely like this project as well. I thought the last project he released last year was pretty good as well. Um, he seemed to come back strong and firing away. I Took It Personal was the album from last year. This one, Smile right here, was a pretty good one too. I was pretty impressed with it. Only 10 tracks. Illmatic only had 10 tracks. I'm not calling it Illmatic, but it's definitely, short, concise, and has some good songs on it though. Number two, Many Problems, definitely delivered. Another classic was pretty cool. Um, I remember the album from last year. Oh no, 2 years ago. That's right. 2023 Sunday Dinner, Worrying About a Classic. Another classic was kind of had me in the mood of Worrying About a Classic. I still think Worrying About a Classic was probably one of the best Nick Grant songs he could have made. But another classic was pretty smooth. Money Problems was definitely hard though. I like that one. That was a good track. Same song featuring Punch. That was pretty cool. Not something I would kind of revisit often as a go-to or anything. But Backup featuring BJ the Chicago Kid was dope. Price Tag, this one right here was nice. West Side Gun and Young Chris from the Young Guns. Yeah, Young Chris from the Young Guns has been going crazy. I know some of y'all probably heard him from like 20 years ago and probably lost track of him, but Young Chris has been back for a while now. I mean, he ain't really nothing nowhere, but yeah, you kind of hearing him more and more, and he is definitely lighting things up on features. Razor Ramon featuring Ransom and Saha. Yeah, Saha has been back as well. He's been on a tear. Ransom doesn't miss. I like this track with Razor Ramon with, like I said, those three. Nick Grant is a lyricist on there as well. Generational Runs, No Shortcuts. Sensitive Gangster, Every Day I Wake, Dope Bitch. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this was a solid project though. Like I said, this is like this third straight project that I'm rocking with. Like he had one project, Sunday Dinner on 2023. I Took It Personal in 2025, and Smile this year. I definitely appreciate what he dropped. Southern artists, South Carolina, Atlanta area type. Um, definitely brings you bars. Definitely brings you bars, punchlines, double entendres, and everything like that. I was impressed with it. And then, like I said, the features showed up as well. I mean, he called up some pretty dope lyricists. Saha and Ransom on that one with Nick Grant. Definitely was a tough one. Um, yeah, I definitely was liking this project right here. Like I said, it creeped in because all the Drake hype, I mean, understandably so. A lot of that Drake hype comes in and it's like, things fly under the radar. I mean, Nick Grant said, listen, I don't care what day Drake dropping. I'm dropping mine that day too. So, I checked it out. After the Drake buzz, I just switched over to this Nick Grant album right here. And then yeah, I wasn't disappointed though. I can honestly say that I think that this was actually a pretty good project. And yeah, man, I mean, like I said, this and along with the highs of Drake's album on Friday wasn't that bad as far as new hip hop releases, though. I gotta give it to him. But also at this point too, gotta shout out the albums that flew under the radar from last month a little bit. I'm just gonna stop by and post them up and show them some love real quick before I move on to the next topic because and then an upcoming one because April was kind of a busy month. A lot of things dropped, and of course, I wasn't always on, so I had to come back and revisit them, show them some love, and here they are. Had this Flee Lord album right here for you East Coast fans right here. This came out. This came out recently in April, like towards the end of April, around April 20th, something like that. But yeah, this one was a pretty smooth project. See Flea Lord with the Air Maxes on there and everything. Everything I never said. Had some pretty good features on there. Good production as well. I think the key on there is production because I like Flea Lord, but I think a downfall can be production. Production can be kind of a low point, but at the same time, when it's on, it's on. And Flea Lord is actually a pretty good bar, pretty much good with the bars as well. So yeah, y'all gotta check that one out too. You're an East Coast rap fan. Lee Lord is definitely kicking hard on this one. He's had some pretty good projects back to back though. He's been stringing them together lately. He's been around for a couple of years now too. So yeah, he's been going hard. Another great project that came out. This is good for the car right here. This is good for some ride and relax music. Currency, Wiz Khalifa, Harry Fraud. This one right here was a great project as well that just came out. Also in April, name of this one right here was Ruthless Records for Drop Tops. This too. Yeah, this one came out April 28th, so right before May. This one was another one you could just throw in your car and just ride to and everything. Smooth flow, Wiz Khalifa, Currency. They usually make a good combination. They usually make some good riding music. You know what I mean? So I was definitely impressed with this one. Like I said, with with Flea Lord as well. Also, they ended the month of April, came into the month of May pretty strong, just kind of flying in under the radar. A lot of people was anticipating that Drake album and everything. Some other good music out there as well, man. Um, and coming up at the end of the month, you already kind of heard two singles off this project, but 38 Special with this project called Eight Shots. Um, Seven Shots was crazy as well. Eight Shots is this one coming out. Seven Shots came out a couple years ago. I like that one as well. But this Eight Shots look like it's on pace to be pretty great. It's coming out May 29th. Two singles already came off of there. One was Heavy Burden with Dave East, and the other one, The Main Line with Method Man. So yeah, you got Method Man on this album right here too. Yeah, I gotta check this out on May 29th. I'm gonna be definitely looking forward to this one. 38, one of the best bars in the game right now. Independent. Yeah, definitely going hard right now. I was definitely rocking with the two singles that came out and made it looking like a pretty good month for hip hop. And 38 is going to end it off for us. It looks like I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, like I said, Flea Lord, you might want to check his out because he came out maybe a couple weeks ago. And I was actually, like I said, I was pretty impressed with the beat selection on this one for his bars. And then he said Currency, Wiz Khalifa, Ruthless Four Drop Tops. You know what I mean? That one, of course, you're always going to ride to some Wiz Khalifa. I mean, Currency, like I said, Wiz Khalifa, two of the best at picking beats. And then, of course, 38 Special. Also, have to be down coming up May 29th. But yeah, final segment. Mount Rushmore Mount Rushmore of hooks in hip hop. Seen this post online, found a good humor in this one, thought I'd entertain it. Um, I'm not taking down the GOAT. Nate Dogg is definitely staying up there. Rest in peace, Nate Dogg. I mean, he was kind of I'm not saying he was the first to do hooks, but he was definitely the first best to do hooks. Everybody had Nate Dogg on their hooks. The list and the catalog of Nate Dogg hooks goes on and on. The most remembered, probably the most cherished is going to be Regulate with Warren G. From there, he's done beats. I mean, he's done hooks from Dr. Dre to Snoop, to Fabulous, to Ludacris, to everybody. At one point, it didn't matter where he's from. At one point, Nate Dogg was like strictly regional, like all West Coast. Yeah, he was like just pretty much the voice of the West Coast. But then everybody wanted him. Everybody wanted Nate Dogg to sing their hooks, and when he did, he always connected on them. So I'm not taking Nate Dogg down. I'm not even disrespecting Nate Dogg by even entertaining somebody else coming off the list before him. I'm not mad at Drake being up there. You know, part of Drake is the singing part. That's probably one of the best. I'm not. It's tough with Drake. You know what I mean? Like he can. It's not saying he can't rap. Like I said, I'm not hating that he can't rap. But one of the best attributes of Drake is that he can actually hold a note. I'm not saying he's Chris Brown or anything. I'm not saying he can sing to the best of them and everything, but he can hold a note enough, the melody, and I think, with the writing of the hooks and everything like that, Drake's a pretty solid hook. And that's one of the things Drake has kind of carried a couple songs with. You know what I mean? And like I said last week, Aston Martin music without Drake singing, you kind of felt that absence. You know what I mean? I hate to be that guy, but you kind of feel that absence. You know what I mean? Like I know the Drake hate train left the station and everything like that. And that was a time when, I was more skeptical of Drake before everybody was, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, even back in his heyday, 2013, 2014 and everything, I thought, songs was cool. But, I wasn't, just stand out like that. I wasn't standing over. I wasn't fanned out. And now that I see people just kind of just hating just to just hate at this point, just trolling and everything, I'm like, let's not get ahead of ourselves. This dude was everybody was liking him at one point. Let's not do that. I was once upon a time where I was like, well, people would come at me for having unfair opinions about Drake. So, me defending Drake now in 2026 is crazy. I never thought I'd see the day. But yeah, Drake and Nate Dogg, I don't have a problem with that. T Pain and Akon, this is a tough one because man, this is a tough one because they're both so good. T Pain and Akon are both so good. Uh, the question is, who did the most volume? Akon, of course, we know him from Locked Up. I mean, that's a classic Akon hook. We know that Akon hook from Locked Up. That is the most classic hook you can get to. Um, as far as Akon go, but there's a few after that as well. But Akon kind of just fell back a little something. You know what I mean? And T Pain kind of kept it going. I'm gonna give you guys an honorable mention, and this is another one that has a strong fan base that you can easily find yourself disagreeing with, but you got to give credit where credit's due. 50 Cent, like you know, I don't know how do you get 50 on a fifth spot on a four-man Mount Rushmore, but I might even put 50. I don't know who will I replace 50. Who would I replace with 50? And I mean, to me, Akon doesn't have enough volume of hooks to where I can't keep 50 from replacing them. Because I mean, Locked Up is a big one. That's a big hook right there. But yeah, 50 had a whole catalog of hooks that he did. You know what I mean? Like outside of Locked Up, you really can't think of too many Akon hooks. I could probably keep T Pain up there because T Pain did some hooks too. I can get with T Pain up there, but I'd probably replace Akon with 50 Cent. Definitely, yeah. And I mean, honestly, an honorable mention, Future. Future done did some crazy hooks over the years too, especially Bugatti. Especially, yeah, Future done did some hooks as well. I mean, Future and 50 are some honorable mentions up there, and you can probably replace Akon with 50. Yeah, yeah. Would you say organized chaos? Yeah, Akon got to go and put 50 up there. Yeah, I was thinking like, yeah, 50 got way too much extensive catalog, you know, to where one. I mean, because like I said, Akon did more than one hook, but you really, really remember just really one hook for Akon. Like, I mean, that one hook that really stands out. 50 was doing hooks for himself. He was doing hooks for Game, the whole G Unit. Doing hooks for whoever else needed hooks. I mean, 50 was doing hooks. And he was writing a lot of music for Interscope as well. But I mean, that's another note. But yeah, as far as King of the Hooks, I mean, like I said, I'm not mad at Akon because he got an iconic hook as far as Soul Survivor too. Yeah, Soul Survivor was another one. I don't really disrespect that one too. Soul Survivor was a great one. Locked Up was a great one. I still feel like it's still a little bit limited to be on the King of Hooks Mount Rushmore, especially when you got T Pain up there already. But I mean, me personally, I would have had Nate Dogg, T Pain, Drake, and 50. And like I said, with a Future as an honorable mention as well. I think Future also did some great hooks. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have a problem with I don't really have a problem with the actual King of the Hooks Mount Rushmore. I think it's a good concept personally because I always kind of said that, I always kind of talked about this before as well. Like who's known for delivering a quality hook. And it's typically, definitely like I said, Nate Dogg probably the GOAT to me. Um, Dude that was regional and then just kind of just went coast to coast with it. I mean, after a while, everybody wanted a Nate Dogg hook at one point. Oh yeah, Kels. Yeah. Now when it comes to R&B doing hip hop, yeah, Kels is on that list. Kels is on that list. Might be top of the list somewhere with Mary J. Blige and Chris Brown. Um, yeah, because I feel like Kells and those type of artists is like R&B because Nate Dogg doesn't necessarily. I mean, Nate Dogg does kind of fall into R&B more than any of the rest of them. Maybe the Akon and T Pain too, but even T Pain raps a little bit. You know what I mean? And it kind of this is kind of what I mean about that transition into melodic hip hop. because as rap started, it was literally just reciting the rhymes, just rapping them, but delivery type of stuff. As it hip hop's kind of evolved, it's gotten more and more than where rappers kind of just sing their raps. And part of that was when you started seeing those R&B singers making those features. I mean, that's a good point though, because Kels, Mary J. Blige, a lot of them, all the way up to Chris Brown now, you still see these R&B features. It went from R&B features to R&B intertwining in hip hop now. It's like, you know what I mean? Like hip hop now is starting to intertwine and blend into R&B. And R&B starting to blend into hip hop, kind of vice versa. So it's like now you look at the top stream artists, you see the NBA young boys, you see the little babies, you see the futures, they all kind of dabble into singing a little bit. Even artists like Kendrick and Drake. I mean, you kind of have to put a little melody or hold a little bit of a note in order to, get those really top streams. I mean, you can make quality music without singing, of course, but I mean, a lot of the top artists is Rod Wave, the younger artists and everything, the Triple X Tentacion and Juice Worlds, all the younger generations artists, they all kind of do that melodic rap type of thing. That's kind of where hip hop kind of evolved into, kind of to make that pop culture transition. So I mean, these King of the Hooks kind of help, and then even the R&B, like you said, all about LT, man. Um, when you see those hooks start blending in and everything like that, and when you start seeing those hooks and those raps, hooks and the raps, throughout the '90s, by the time it got to the 2000s, you start seeing Ja Rule and 50 and all of them. They started just blending it in even more, but they started doing their own hooks, and then it finally get the Drakes and the artists that started singing their raps a little bit. So it was like it was always a kind of that growing and growing transition, and eventually it just starts intertwining. Now you're in 2026, it's like very few hip hop artists that don't pretty much sing. That's kind of why you don't really see somebody that's really known for hooks anymore. Cause most of the artists are singing their hooks now, singing their own stuff now. You had to dream another one. Yeah. When you got to that 2000s mark, you start seeing a lot of these, the R&B singers, it was, at that point, almost every song had an R&B singer on it. Like mid 2000s, almost every hit song had an R&B feature on it, to the point where it's like, now you got Drake, who's kind of like the one man hit kind of thing, like a one stop shop for a hit. He sings the hooks, he raps the verses, you know, and then he jumps on other people's tracks and features and sings the hooks as well. So when people discuss like where hip hop went, what direction it went, and then at the same time, simultaneously, will ask where the R&B go, and it's like the answer's right in front of your face. It's blended together. It's like a bologna. You know how bologna kind of has like all type of different odd parts of an animal blended together and everything. Kind of hip hop is just kind of taking this part, that part, and just blended it all together. And now you got, like I said, the top streaming artists are all kind of doing melodic rap, man. Nobody's really just rapping hard, just straight bars like that, and at the top of the streaming list anymore. I mean, that's just kind of how hip hop evolved. A lot of the typical style of hip hop is kind of just like for the OGs or just for the older lane of hip hop, kind of just like I said, you got to catch them on the streaming era and everything like that. Because if you listen to it, I mean, if you catch a lot of these younger artists, man, a lot of them are just kind of just rapping and singing, singing and rapping. I mean, you still got a couple of them rapping now. You got a couple of younger artists out there still sticking to rap, but I mean, a lot of the top streamed artists, yeah, it's all kind of that melodic, and this list right here is kind of indicative of how it kind of blended in. Starting off with the R&B though, and you're absolutely right about how these different R&B artists had an influence first, and then you had those R&B guys, those R&B type of singing types that were just kind of permanently embedded in the group, like Nate Dogg and Warren G together were kind of a duo, and one would rap, one would sing, But Nate Dogg, like I said, blurred the lines of an R&B singer because he was mostly on rap hip hop tracks. You know what I mean? That's where the line got blurred because yeah, he never really rapped, but he was on rap songs mostly, and he was just the one that was singing. And remember on Death Row they had Danny Boy as well singing the hooks as well. So that's kind of that evolution, kind of blending in and putting them all together and everything like that. That it all came down to. But yeah, I'm definitely cool with the list for the most part. Like I said, I probably have one contention, one pushback. Probably throw 50 on there, place Akon. But yeah, very influential group. Very pivotal group, very critical group here too as well. And I was cool with that though. I mean, it was something like I said, always something I always wanted to come across and talk about as well. And sure enough, the internet gave me something I didn't have to create myself. So I just ran across it and thought I see how the people thought about it. But yeah, that's my time for the evening, man. I hope everyone enjoyed. Like I said, Drake had a big buzz, had everything going for the weekend, gave us something to talk about. Whether you liked it, didn't like it, it's a polarizing out, it's a polarizing artist, polarizing album. See what direction he goes as he most likely goes towards the independent path. Keep you up and coming, keep you up on the new feat, the new songs that's coming, new albums, new songs that's coming out, anniversaries, all type of hip hop content. Hope you all have a great weekend. Hope you enjoy the rest of going into your week into Wednesday. I'll be watching Game 7 of the Cavaliers and the Pistons, talking about it on Wednesday on the Sports Night episode. You catch me at 9 o'clock on YouTube, same channel. You can find me, like I said, on TikTok. This is Left Fresh. You can find me on YouTube. I mean, you can find me here, of course, on YouTube, the Left Fresh podcast. I have a couple polls and posts and everything like that for you all to engage as well. And you can also find me on Instagram at This Is Left Fresh. Until then, it's the Left Fresh podcast signing out. You have a great weekend, all. Peace.